Hey, what's going on, guys? Happy New Year. It is 2022. I'm Chris with the Morning Mayhem. Glad you're here joining me. We're going to look at some news, going to look at some entertainment stuff. Going to talk a little bit more about what the show is about, but so excited that it's 2022. We're done with our 2020, 2021, 15 days to flatten the curve kind of baggage, and any of the madness that's happened. I know we just hit the anniversary of January 6th, which to some people was a insurrection, to other people was a mostly peaceful protest. But hey, nothing crazy to start off this year, right? Okay, I was hoping that this year would be different, that no matter what we did, we would all come together and things would get better, and this terrible thing would no longer be around to just ruin our lives on a day-to-day basis. But yet here it is. But now let's talk about this Florona thing. So this comes out of the Washington Post. It talks about it in plenty of other places too, but what is Florona? Coronavirus and influenza co-infections report as Omicron surges. Let's see, new year, new coronavirus term. Many people around the world kicked off 2022 by searching for more information about Florona after Israel reported that 2 young pregnant women had tested positive for both the coronavirus and the flu. Doctors have long been concerned about the potential of a twindemic, with influenza cases rising as COVID cases threatened to overwhelm hospitals, and called on people to get flu shots and coronavirus vaccinations, yada, yada, yada. So this article goes on and on. The link for it will be in the description. In fact, any notes that I use, any links that I use anyways, the links for those sites will be down in the description. Check them out if you want to do any further reading or anything. Speaking of doing any further reading, doing your own research, doing your own reading, not taking my word for it is a wonderful thing to do. There are plenty of other content creators out there. Most of us are not doctors, not qualified to give you medical sound advice. That said, neither are politicians. So when you go make your medical decisions on what you're going to do with the Florona or the COVID or whatever we have that's going on, keeping us in, some sort of lockdown or restricted freedom, liberty kind of setting, talk to your doctor. I mean, if anybody's going to be the best person to talk to is going to be your doctor. You can get information from content creators, media, politicians, even con men. But you're going to want to talk to your doctor for the advice. And I would recommend this though. When you talk to your doctor, there are 2 things I think are important. I think there's the preventive measures taken, and then there's the treatment measures taken. That was something that was very, very big for me. That if my doctor said there was no treatment methods available out there, that you just had to go to the hospital, get on an incubator or whatever, and just wait and see what happens, it's not acceptable. Not when there's enough research and studies out there to show that there are some treatment options. Obviously, I can't say what they are right now, but more on that later. All right, so let's get into it. What do we got going on here? All right, so let me introduce myself and the whole point of me being here. This show is just a reason for me to talk to you and to hear my own voice. It's kind of my thing, but it's another media outlet, so to speak, a content creator. More and more independent artists are rising up all the time. Now, I'm a filmmaker. That's my goal. That's my mission. That's what I want to do. But this is something that's kind of been growing in my mind here lately, as I've seen these other content creators putting information out there, and more people are turning to independent content creators than they are, legacy media, I guess you call it. So why is that? So I wanted to go out and do my research and have my takes on things, and wanted to share those with you. But the reason that I think it's important to support content creators and independent content creators like myself and some others I'll throw up there in a minute, is mainstream media is corporately backed, obviously. Big corporate backing. Some of them may or may not have interest or vested financial interest in COVID vaccinations. I don't know. They may or may not. But they're Oftentimes they're politically driven. And most of them, most mainstream media is left leaning. Most. Obviously, you got your right leaning ones, but either way, they're all politically driven, and they try to sweep it under the rug for the most part, mixing their opinion pieces in with their news, information, fact based shows, and it's hard to tell what's what a lot of the times, right? Well, with independent content creators, what do you get? You get shows that are not backed by large corporations. We're free to speak for the most part, I guess, within the confines of whatever streaming platform we use allows us to say and do. But you know, if we do have biases, most of us admit our bias. You know, you may or may not know what mine is at the end of the show, and that's perfectly fine, because if all you do is you watch news or shows that align with your political ideology, whether it's leaning to the right or to the left or whatever it is, and those are your only sources of news, your only sources of information, and that's the only place you go for anything, then you get in this tunnel vision where that's all you hear, and you think everybody is on the same page because you keep seeing it in all these other, you know, sources. Well, the truth is that the world is huge and has a ton of different ideology out there, and it's great to have balance. So there's a lot of people, and I will say statistically from what I have seen, what I have read, is that a lot of conservatives will take in both conservative and left-leaning information, news and whatnot, but most people that are on the left, progressives or whatnot, they pretty much just stick with that kind of news. And honestly, I mean, that's what's taken over mainstream media, be it in movies, late night TV shows, et cetera, et cetera. So I understand how that's easy to do, but I would really encourage you to get your information from as many places as you can, right? You know, these guys right here are some of the ones that I've listened to and I promote, and they're out there providing their free entertainment, free thought, bringing their common sense perspectives to the table. And, you know, there's a ton more, like I said, leaning to the left, leaning to the right, down the middle. And I guess the question that a lot of people may have is there room for anyone else? Well, I believe there is, because I believe there's always room at the table to have another perspective or more conversation. More information, more perspective, more conversation is what molds a good, healthy understanding of things, comprehension of things. We all come from different perspectives of life, positions of upper class, lower class, middle class, whatever it may be, liberal, progressive, conservative, moderate, and to hear the ideology mixed together is great. So yeah, I think there's plenty of room out there, and these guys that I was just showing, awesome, absolutely dig them, love them, would watch them every day, and most of them I do, and others as well. And so I encourage you to get as much information as you can when you're ready for it, from as many different places as you can as well. But yeah, I think there's plenty of room out there, and here's why. The mainstream media really created a vacuum. Okay. Louder with Crowder, Timcast, and others get more views than most legacy, you know, news network information shows of whatever it may be. ABC, NBC, NBC, I think I already said that, CBS, Fox, and especially CNN. I'm going to beat CNN down a lot because it's a 24-hour news network filling 24 hours, and they seem to keep doing the same story over and over again. And right now it's all about, well, for the last, 5 going on 6 years now, it's been about Trump. And their ratings are absolutely tanking. And what's really interesting to see is, like I mentioned, Louder with Crowder, Timcast. These are some guys that are, they're on YouTube. They're on some alternative platforms as well. I hate the term alternative platforms. They're on other platforms as well, just as I am. But one that I didn't mention, and they're getting probably the most views and listenings to, I guess, than anybody right now, is Joe Rogan podcast. So many people are tuning in to see the Joe Rogan podcast. What does he have to say? What does his guests have to say? And, you know, obviously you got to commend the guy, because no matter where he falls on ideology or push or pull for any particular subject, he always invites people that either agree, disagree, challenges him, pushes him, but creates great conversation. And again, that's what we want to go for, is that good conversation, right? All right, so let's see. Yeah, so the other crazy thing is that right now, the king of late night is a Fox News journalist. Greg Gutfeld is not the absolute greatest show ever, obviously, okay? But you know what it is? It's different. It's different from every other late night show that's out there that is pulling you to the left by a large margin, right? Did I say Martian? Margin. It's pulling you to the left by a large margin, right? So every single one of those, they're preaching to you. They're talking down to you. And here's something that those other late night show hosts tend to do, and a lot of other talk show hosts tend to do, is not only do they disagree with people that have different ideology than them, political, religious, whatever it may be, mostly political, but they talk down to them. They put them down. So if you're a Trump supporter, you are terrible. You are awful. You are the worst. Well, no wonder their ratings are in the tank, right? How many people want to keep watching somebody who keeps crapping on them every time? Right? All right, let's see. Remember this.
Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
Or how about this?
And turns out I got COVID.
Popular podcaster and mixed martial arts celebrity Joe Rogan announcing today on Instagram he contracted COVID, but says with a mixture of medicines, including the controversial horse dewormer that has poisoned hundreds of people nationwide.
Okay, so now if we're being honest, I think the majority of people know those are lies. The mainstream media is not the only ones that can look at emails, okay? They're not the only source of information. What Joe Rogan took was not horse dewormer. Okay, so you may see articles out there still that are peddling that lie. We know they're lies. Mainstream media is lying to you. Why? Because they want to be the end all be all for your information. They want you to turn to them before you turn to anyone else. They don't want you doing your own research. That's why Stelter, whatever, is out there saying, hey, don't do your own research. That's a terrible thing to say. Get it from us. Get the information from us. No, absolutely not. And you know what? I'm going to throw these guys back up there. These guys are awesome. These are some of the shows that I watch right now on YouTube and other platforms. And you know what they do? They deliver the information, whether it's entertainment-based, gaming-based, political-based, or whatever it may be. But they deliver their perspective, and they tell you openly they don't know everything about it. And they support each other, and they really try to push for people to go out there and do their own research when it comes to anything that's important. If you like the movie that they talk about that they don't like, they still tell you to go out and support it if you want to. The big thing is that by the media creating this vacuum, shows like us exist. Okay. Again, with their lying, mainstream lied about the economy being good, right? Lying about gas prices being down. Lying about the cases like Kyle Rittenhouse. There's still people today that I talk to think that Kyle Rittenhouse went to across state borders, state lines, whatever, with an illegal firearm and shot black people. None of that is true. None of that is true. Okay? But there are people that still believe that because there are still people in the mainstream media that are pushing that narrative. So people are just tired of being lied to. I won't judge like mainstream media does. You know, these content creators don't judge. We never talk about, don't watch our show if you're not vaccinated. Don't watch our show because of who you voted for. It's ridiculous. Again, they push you away and they alienate you and they make you not want to watch your show. And I mean, ultimately, again, that's why their ratings are down. That's why more people are turning to independent content creators. So just sharing the latest news, current events, and updates in the entertainment world from my perspective is what I'm here for. Okay. If you enjoy the content, give us a like. If you really like it and you want to see some more, subscribe. And if maybe in this at some point, there's a really good message that you think someone else needs to hear, share it. And if you hate it and if you hate me and anything I do, put it in the comments. I'll read it. I promise I will. All right. Let's check out some more stuff. What we got going on? Box office recap. Let's start a little bit lighter in the news. So a little entertainment, right? Let's see. we're going to recap the top 10 films of basically the year. Okay. And there's a reason for this, and there's a point to it that ties into being preached to, being lied to, and then some. All right, let's take a look at it first. All right, so looking here at the box office numbers, this is all listed by domestic box office from the numbers. Again, link in the description. Spider-Man No Way Home obviously killed it. Shang-Chi, Venom, Black Widow, F9, Eternals, No Time to Die, Quiet Place Part 2, Ghostbusters Afterlife, and Free Guy rounded out the year in the top 10. So a few things about that. I got a spreadsheet here. It's kind of got a breakdown of what their expenses may have been for the budget, what the marketing may have looked like, and what their box office numbers were. So obviously starting out, looking at Spider-Man up here, did great. I mean, $200 million budget, made almost, they're easily going to clear $1.4 billion, right? Amazing. And now that's a Sony Disney venture. Okay. Sony 75%, Disney 25%, from what I understand. Then you go down to Shang-Chi, Marvel, Disney, right? Looks like worldwide, 417,952,000, yada, yada, yada. And I emphasize that dollar amount because actually when I checked it now, it's showing, there we go. All right. Showing 417,919,000, which again, you look at that 919,000 compared to what we have here, 952,000. I got these numbers like a little while back. And so what I'm pulling up on the website is the most current. So it actually lost like 30 something thousand already in worldwide box office. Not sure how that happened. That's what that little star over there is for. Not only that, but Eternals did the same thing. Eternals had higher numbers when I pulled it up about a week or so ago, looking at it. And now when I pull it up, they've lost money too. So not really sure what's going on with those two. Don't know what's up with the reporting on that. But let's continue. So you got Shang-Chi. Where am I? Venom 2 killed it. Venom 2 killed it. You see here again with the Prophet, killed it. Black Widow was just a disaster, obviously, right? And again, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to what these little yellow-ish kind of things mean. Fast 9 made money. Eternals lost money. No Time to Die made money. Quiet Place 2, Ghostbusters, Free Guy, all made money. So you're looking at Black Widow and Eternals lost money. And these are both Marvel Disney ventures. And it's easy to make movies that the fans want to see. It really is. It's also really easy to make movies that social justice warriors want to see. The problem with that is usually what you get is you get diversity and inclusion over quality of story. And I don't mean you can't have quality of story with all those things, but when the emphasis is on those things, you tend to focus on that more than you tend to focus on the actual story. So in these yellow highlighted ones, there's been reports from all kinds of moviegoers that have seen these, that there are clearly objectives in there, whether it be, man bad, white man bad, woman, powerful, woman is the best. We need all this diversity. We've got every color in the rainbow and every sexual orientation. That's the emphasis that they put on a lot of these. And there's the directors out there that have even said that specifically, that they put the emphasis on that. And you can see from the box office numbers for a lot of those, they didn't do too hot. Okay. And look, Shang-Chi made 117, call it 118 million is what we're looking at right now. That's okay. For a Disney Marvel movie to clear that, it's not as good as what they have seen in the past, obviously. And I know they blame a lot on the pandemic, but the pandemic's still going on for the most part. And look at Spider-Man. Spider-Man's gonna, with DVD sales or Blu-ray sales or whatnot, Spider-Man's gonna probably get to 2 billion. Okay, I mean, phenomenal numbers from Spider-Man. Now again, they gave the fans what they wanted. That was a Sony Disney venture, together. Sony 75%, Disney 25%, from what I understand. Could be wrong on that. That's what I understand. So, rounding out these top 10, looking at profits, if you look at Marvel movies, which are known to be huge, ginormous, blockbuster movies, they walked away with a profit, including the 25% from Spider-Man, of around $341 million. Don't get me wrong, I'd be happy with that. But for that studio to walk away with that after a year of, what, 4 plus films and then shows on, I'm not counting the shows obviously on Disney Plus, but you would want to bring more than that home for Disney. Okay. Sony, in just the top 10, Sony had, I think, 2 films is all I believe I count. Venom 2 and part of Spider-Man, right? 75% of Spider-Man. Ghostbusters was part of that too. $1.1 billion in profit. If these numbers are right, $1.1 billion in profit. Billion with a B. And the graph just kind of hurts your feelings even more for these Eternals and Black Widow. Okay. I know the idea is to make movies and, make a profit. But it doesn't actually kind of seem like it anymore for some of these studios and some of these films. I'm almost wondering if it's just a tax write-off that you had such a big loss trying to appease some fans. I don't know. Speaking of the fans, what do the fans think? Let's take a look over here at Rotten Tomatoes. Spider-Man, 94% by the critics, 98% audience. They loved it. Obviously, that shows. Shang-Chi, high ratings from the audience and the critics. I think it's just a turnout issue there. People seem to enjoy it, I guess. But maybe word of mouth wasn't good enough that people went to the theaters to actually watch it. Venom. The critics hated it. 58% rotten. And the audience loved it, 84%. I say loved it. 84% is pretty much loving it. Anywhere close between 80 and 100 obviously is loving it, I think. So audience enjoyed it, and it shows. Black Widow. The audience really liked it. Got certified fresh with 79%. Okay, so I don't know how Rotten Tomatoes works. I'm going to be transparent about that, okay? I quit using them a long time ago to judge whether I wanted to see something or not because I seem a little biased towards certain studios and films or actors. So I don't know how trustworthy this is, okay? Let's look at F9. 59%. But 82% audience. But then if you look over at the spreadsheet again, let me pop that up, see if I can. Pow. Look over at that. They did a lot worldwide, okay, internationally. It wasn't the biggest domestic box office, but internationally, those guys killed it. So there's still a lot of love for that franchise, obviously. Eternals, the critics didn't even like it. Now, I would imagine that early critics gave it a higher score. I would be interested to see that. And I'm sure there's some other shows, Geeks and Gamers, Critical Drinker, somebody like that's probably got screenshots of earlier reviews. And I'm fairly certain that the critics probably loved it because usually what you get is such a huge disconnect between the critics and the audience. Okay. No Time to Die, great. Quiet Place, awesome. Ghostbusters, again, audience seemed to really, really like this movie, and the critics were not so excited about it. And then Free Guy was pretty good. So not too much of a disconnect here, but a lot of times what we're seeing is a lot of the critics that are shilling for the big studios and stuff, they're giving scores really, really low for films that do really, really well, and the opposite is true as well, giving really high scores to stuff that just bomb at the box office. So not too much of a disconnect here in these, but you see that what critics are looking for and what certain people on Twitter are looking for is different than what the moviegoers themselves are looking for. And I think the overall box office numbers, profit and loss, and really shows that. Okay. And that's your top 10. So that's top 10 for the year with some of them having losses. Now, I've never made a movie that has made anywhere near any of that much money. Of course, I haven't lost that much money either. If we're looking at Black Widow, what, $24,525,821. I definitely have not made a movie that has lost that much money. So, doing good. All right, let's continue. And get out of that. All right, so this page does this every time I go to it. There we go. It's almost like they're trying to hide it or something. All right, so Marvel's Kevin Feige talks diversity in MCU Phase 4 and beyond. So I haven't learned their lesson. They're going to keep pushing it. Again, don't get me wrong. I think it's great to have the diversity, but I think it's great when it's natural, when it's part of the story and it comes about and it's not forced. A lot of this stuff is forced. Okay. Let's take a look over here. Kathleen Kennedy teases return of Star Wars sequel trilogy characters. So I've been watching a lot of the folks I was mentioning earlier, and a lot of those guys are talking about the new Star Wars hotel experience thing and how there are no classic Star Wars characters. And even in the parks themselves at Disney World, Disneyland, whatever, there's no classic characters. I think maybe Chewbacca. And I love Chewie. But everything is centered around these sequel trilogy characters, and they just are not there. And, you know, side note, one of my favorite filmmakers right now, directors, is Mike Flanagan. Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Hush, Doctor Sleep, Midnight Mass, and there's some other stuff he's done. But he does such a great job of developing characters, pulling you into that world and telling a good story. That didn't happen in the slightest bit in the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. But yet those characters who have not really been developed are being pushed out there again. So I'd say it's been a hard year for these guys to have to learn their lesson, and clearly they haven't. All right, so let's talk about this. This has been a year, a time, or whatever for things that need you, right? They need you to participate for them to be real. What am I talking about? So the LGBTQ plus community is a community that is growing in not just numbers, but letters. The LGBTTTIQ. Okay. Look, I don't know what all those stand for. I don't know if anybody in the LGBTQ community knows what all those stand for. And that is one community that is super vocal about acceptance and inclusion and all that good stuff. Okay. But they are adding all of the letters and we're starting to run out. What are we going to do? Look, I get it. I get the idea and the push for equality. I struggle with seeing how me participating is equality, though. Here's what I mean. You're expected to know what all those letters stand for by some people in that community. You're expected to know what the LGBT, all of it means. You're expected to respect people in that community, which, I mean, as people, we should respect each other, right? But you're also not allowed to make jokes about them. They are completely off the market. Can't make jokes about them. Can't discriminate in any kind of way against them. But, you know, other classes of people, other orientations, whatever, it's fine. But that is the number one, I would say, community right now that's kind of pulling the reins. Okay. Was it Dave Chappelle? I think, and understand this. And Dave Chappelle's the closer. I don't recall him ever saying anything disparaging about the LGBTQ community. He actually had a very, very good story about a friend that he made that was a transsexual. And it was a very sad story if you watch it to the end. But he also criticized the community because of how they criticized him and they criticized others. And he talked about that, but he didn't put them down. He called them out. He called them out on what they were doing. And he did say this too in one of his specials that, you know, if black people, I think, had go-go shorts, you know, they would have had their rights a long time ago or something like that. And it, you know, and it's true, you know, we've gone way of, you know, focusing on individual groups of rights and equalities or whatever it is. And, you know, LGBTQ is moving to the front of the line. I mean, God bless them. I hope the best for them, but in order for me to validate you, that's not equality. And that's where I really struggle with it. And understand, I grew up as a Christian, still a Christian, got plenty of lesbian, gay, bisexual friends, and I love them to death. Just had a party with some of them, and I'm, one of the only straight people there. But me and my wife we love those guys so much. But they don't expect me to participate in anything. But there are people in the community that say you have to acknowledge that I am this, or you have to believe that even though I'm clearly a man, you have to believe that I'm a woman. And again, that's where I struggle. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Let's look at a couple of things.
Just because I may present more femme doesn't mean that I'm any less they, them.
All right, so this is talking about the pronouns and how you're supposed to
That thing
participate.
where you're eating a meal, but you're not really eating a meal. You're just kind of picking at food on the counter. My family and I were doing that one night, and I just kind of looked at them and said, hey guys, I'm non-binary. I don't have a gender.
In my opinion, gender is a universe. It is a broad spectrum of planets and stars and sky.
My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and that's a non-negotiable.
I think one of the main reasons pronouns
Non-negotiable.
are so important is because other than our name, it's one of the main ways that people identify and call us.
My pronouns are personally very important to me. Like, you know how like guys like do that whole like that thing. I was so bad at that, and it just like I felt very
that dap?
alienated. Coming into terms with my gender
We were
queer
doing that all the
identity
time.
has been one of the most challenging but also rewarding things that I've done.
Laverne Cox kind of famously said, misgendering
Now
a
listen to
trans
this.
person is an act of violence.
An
And
act
it
of
is.
violence
It's an act
to
of
misgender.
psychological violence. It's a
gonna come back
denial
to
of
that.
somebody's personhood and a complete refusal to acknowledge their identity, whether intentional or not.
And so it is something that is entirely wrapped around our everyday lives. So just walking into a restaurant and hearing someone say she, like, will happen within 2 seconds of me entering, which doesn't happen about any of my other identities. They're not gonna be like, oh, you
Other
straight
identities.
person. You know, like that doesn't happen.
You know, oftentimes I'm in situations where I'm not the most safe.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward on this.
So many different options for who you are and how to define that. So when someone chooses a personal pronoun that they identify with, using that pronoun is a form of respect and a form of validation that, yes, this
Validation,
is your
coming back to
rightful
that too.
identity, and I will respect that.
And not knowing how to combat it. It is constant, and it is such a prevalent part of our society that being misgendered happens countless times in a day, and that builds up really quickly, and it can really be difficult for a person to hear over and over again because it invalidates your identity over and over and over again.
And I also don't like that people call them their preferred pronouns, because it's also not a preference. It's who they are. You need to use those pronouns. It's literally an extension of my arm or my leg. It's just as a part of me as a vital organ. My identity, although you can't see it, still needs to be validated just as much as you would validate the fact that I have 5 fingers or 5 toes.
All right, so I jumped around there a little bit. So let's talk about a couple of things there. The validation part. So it's like you have to get the vaccine for it to work for me, right? Or you have to believe and call me, you have to believe I'm this gender and call me these pronouns in order for me to feel like it's real, for it to be real. Okay. There's a huge disconnect there. Like, I'm all about you transitioning. I'm not transphobic or homophobic or anything. If a man wants to have surgery to be a woman, go for it. You can have surgery to be a woman, but you'll always be a man who had surgery to be a woman. Nothing biologically is going to make you a woman. That's just the truth. And I know people are getting banned for stuff like that or canceled for stuff like that. And nothing biologically changes to make you another, gender or sex. I know people are interchanging them. And I think the biggest obstacle that is facing acceptance or inclusion a little bit more in, people that don't understand all that is this whole idea that it's being forced on you. Like, you have to believe this, you have to accept that. Otherwise, I didn't really transition. I'm not really this. I put it in your hands to validate me. And unfortunately, that's a terrible way to live. And unfortunately, that's a terrible thing to rely on, because some people are never going to validate you. People will never validate you. If you're straight, people definitely don't validate, hey, you over there with the 5 fingers, come on over here. Okay. So some of that's just reaching. Okay. But I digress. Okay. I don't want to get canceled on my first show here. So they're looking for validation, and we want to give that to them, for what is valid. And I think a lot of people would argue that a man is a man, as a woman is a woman. And anything that's not that is an abnormality, right? It's not saying that it doesn't exist. There are abnormalities out there. But if and you can see it on plenty of videos and hear plenty of people talking about it. But if a man goes to a hospital with certain pains in certain areas, but tells the doctor that they're a woman, they're going to be looking for different things. They're going to be looking to diagnose it with different diseases and stuff. So being honest and being who we are and who we were created, whether you believe in creation or whatever, look, we are what we are. Now, if you want to dress feminine or dress masculine, I think that's fine. Okay. If you want to have the transition, I think that's fine. But I think it's really important to understand that biologically, we are still what we were born as. And that's not me being hateful, right? That's just me saying, number one, that's healthy for, especially with conversations with a doctor or a medical professional about anything really. And 2, it doesn't need validation from somebody. You are who you are, regardless of what I think or anybody else thinks. So constantly seeking validation is pretty much pointless for anything. Okay, moving on. All right. So I spoke about this earlier too, about the pandemic, the unvaccinated, right? We need you to believe it, to accept it, for it to be real, right? Let's take a look at something else.
There is a clear message that is coming through. This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
The only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated.
We're still in a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
The pandemic of the unvaccinated.
We have a pandemic among the non-vaccinated. My message to unvaccinated Americans is this: what more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see? We've made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient. The vaccine has FDA approval. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us.
All right. I think you see there that the pandemic of the unvaccinated. So if the vaccines work that well, you wouldn't need the unvaccinated to get vaccinated, because the vaccines would work fine. Now, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to tell whether I'm vaccinated or not. I'm not going to push you or criticize you whether you're vaccinated or not. But the whole idea that the vaccine only works if everyone is vaccinated doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It defies what a vaccine is. It defines what effective is, right? It's not the same thing. If it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and the problem are the unvaccinated people, then they would be the ones getting sick, not the vaccinated. I just saw, what was it, yesterday? Whoopi Goldberg. I think she's had both vaccines. She's had a booster, and she was shocked that she got COVID. She tested positive for Omicron or whatever. Well, yeah. The 15 days to flatten the curve when it initially rolled out was not 15 days so people wouldn't get sick. It was 15 days to flatten the curve so the hospitals could handle the load, because there was a good chance that a lot of people, if not everybody, was going to, at some point in time, get the Rona. Okay. This was a known thing, but you've got natural immunity. You've got, which maybe you can or can't talk about. You've got other things out there that you can do preventative or treatment wise. And then of course there are the vaccines. And I think it's very important, again, to do your research and figure out what's going on. 3 questions. If the vaccines work, right? Why the continued restrictions? Why is our economy still in the pits? And why do the unvaccinated need to be vaccinated?
Well, Chris, what you've asked is a three-part question, and I think I'll answer the last question first. What was the question?
Basically. That's basically what you get when you ask those questions, right? Just do as I say, keep doing it. I do a terrible Fauci impersonation, but you get it. Just do what we tell you to do. Let's check this out. All right, let's look at some of these headlines. Italy targets unvaccinated with restrictions as cases rise. Kroger adds monthly surcharge for unvaccinated workers, cuts their COVID-19 sick leave. Scott says 5% of unvaccinated Vermonters are the problem. The unvaccinated are the problem there. And a doctor says pandemic of unvaccinated as COVID-19 surge overwhelms hospitals. Look, there are plenty of videos, testimonies, whatever out there that will tell you that the idea of a hospital is to be at capacity. They want to make money. The more people in beds, the better, right? So the fact that they're like, we're overwhelmed, that's either coming from a lot of people being sick, like way too many people being sick that they don't have enough beds, or could be from them laying off a whole bunch of nurses when there was another, variant coming out or whatever. So keep in mind that a lot of this stuff may be, self-promoted. This may be something that was created. And I don't mean the virus. Don't cancel me. Don't report me. But I mean some of the issues that we're seeing are created, right? The economy, which they'll tell you is great. We'll get to that in a minute. The economy issues, the overall health issues, because it's not just whatever virus is out there. There's a lot of mental issues going on with people that are still struggling with everything that's going on in the world. Okay. And it's not helping, especially if they're having financial hardships, right? Okay. So a lot of this stuff is manufactured. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. A lot of these issues are manufactured. They are created by someone with, I would assume, the plan to benefit from those issues, whatever it is. Okay. If you don't participate, you're to blame. Okay. So this is, again, what do we need you to do? We need you to be vaccinated, because if you're unvaccinated, you're actually the problem. We need you to believe of my identity, my pronouns. You need to call me that. Otherwise, it's not done. It's not real. I'm not validated. So that destroys the whole concept or something. I don't know. So if you don't participate, you're to blame. You're homophobic, transphobic, fatphobic, xenophobic, anti-vaxxer, Trump supporter, which is now a term, I guess, hate speech, another made up term, science denier. Look, at the end of the day, you can be all about the vaccine, but against vaccine mandates. You can be pro vaccine, but also pro doing your own research and finding out about it. But to a lot of these people, you're an anti-vaxxer. Or if you say anything that goes against the science, whatever that is, it's because science isn't settled on anything, you're a Trump supporter. And again, this is how they divide. This is how they push people away. And they do it all the time. All right, let's look at some more. Right now, they will tell you these things, and they will then turn around and say, hey, the economy's doing great. It just doesn't seem like it, but it is. Economy's doing great. We need you to believe that. Let's put it on every news network. Let's feed it to you nonstop. Here's an article. Here's an article. Here's a news media. News 24 hours running it. Hey, look how great the economy's doing. It was said that Biden's administration, press secretary or whatnot, Jen Psaki, met with some news outlets and told them they need to lighten it up and give him some better coverage. And Don Lemon's celebrating, I think, 3 cents or 8 cents or whatever it was, drop in gas prices, which is still like over $1 more, or maybe $2 more than what it was like a year previously. So it's really interesting seeing how they're twisting the narrative to try to get you to believe. Let's take a look at a couple things. Here's a good one. They want you to believe that Biden is the one in charge, and they're going to make sure you understand that.
So who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne.
Come
on. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris.
I can't stand that woman. Very humble, very gracious vice president. All right, so they want you to believe Joe Biden is the president, that Joe Biden's making the calls, and we see him all the time telling who he is supposed to call on, who he's not supposed to call on, and so forth. Let's look at some more. Why inflation can actually be good for everyday Americans and bad for rich people. I have never seen that work out to be the case. NBC suggests not having Thanksgiving turkey this year to deal with inflation cost. Okay. Gas prices actually aren't that high. And inflation is good for you. And another one, why Americans are so grumpy about their economic boom. So what they're telling you is the economy is good. Gas prices are low. The economy is not only good, but it's booming, and you're ungrateful for it. Now, look, I know some of those articles are older, but I just wanted to point out what they're saying. So go without a turkey for Thanksgiving. Hey, maybe, don't invite as many people over. Well, that wouldn't be the case, and that wouldn't be an issue if the economy was legitimately doing better. I could have 2 turkeys this year. I invite twice as many people. But no, the narrative is it's doing good, but you have to pull back. Doesn't make any sense. Let's look at a couple more things here. All right. Biden suspends oil and gas leasing in slew of executive actions on climate change. Yeah, he did that as soon as he got into office because of climate change. He wanted to push for climate change. So a lot of people lost their jobs. And frankly, we cut out our own oil supplies here in America. And then he made deals for other nefarious countries to continue making oil and actually purchase oil from them. But they don't know why the gas prices are high. It's their fault. It's not his. It's not this administration's. It's the gas companies, the oil companies from the Middle East or wherever that we're getting it from, because they're being greedy. Let's go to this one. Here's why groceries keep getting more expensive. You probably realize that shopping for food and household basics is more expensive these days. Expect to keep paying more for groceries in 2022. Prices shoppers pay for groceries climbed 1% in October from September and were 5.4% higher than at the same time last year, according to data. I think it's showed on here somewhere. According to 2019 data, the latest available households and the lowest income group spent an average of $4,400 on food, representing 30% of their income, while households in the highest income segment spent an average of $13,987 on food, representing 8% of income, according to the Department of Agriculture. And so why that is important, lowest income group spent a higher percentage, 36% of everything they earned was spent on food. Yet the highest income segment spent 8%. They spent more money, but it was only 8% of their income on food. But they will tell you that inflation is better for you and me, you and I, than it is for the wealthy. It's not. It's not. It's absolute lies. Absolute lies. That statement right there directly conflicts with the article about the inflation impacting the 1% more. You can't have it both ways, guys. Okay? All right. This administration keeps blaming the former Trump administration, CEOs, all right, CEOs, for being greedy, raising prices, forcing consumers to pay more. They're blaming the unvaccinated because reasons. And they're blaming you. They're blaming you for everything. be it the unvaccinated, or be it you're not wearing your mask enough, you're not social distancing enough, heaven forbid, there's plenty of videos and pictures of them not doing it. But rules for thee, not for me. Let's continue. It's past time for people to take responsibility for their actions. Yes, you, as an adult, are responsible for your actions and no one else's. Okay? So all this, we need you to participate. It's your fault. No. There are people that should be held accountable that aren't being held accountable, and the buck's getting passed to you and me. Okay? Responsibility is a special trigger word for the day because I know that there's a certain group of people that don't like taking responsibility for their actions. This administration blames you and everyone else but themselves. It's your fault if you're not attracted to a trans person, a disabled person, fat person, vaccine. Sorry, couldn't help myself on that one. Look, got a little video show you. If you don't believe me, take it from my friend.
Hey, bestie. You're wrong.
Oh, God.
I think it's time for another adult pre-K lesson. What do you think? All right, turn your listening ears on. Zoop, catch a bubble in your mouth. Good job. Okay, here's the thing. Having a preference is something like, I'm looking for a partner who likes kayaking, or wakes up early in the morning, or loves pizza. But when your preferences exclude an entire group of marginalized people, that's problematic. Okay,
She's
that's
contradicting
not nice. That's
herself
not a preference.
in this whole video.
If you lump all fat people in one group together as though they are not very different individuals, that's fatphobic. Just like lumping all black people in one group and saying, I don't like black people is racist. And lumping all disabled people in one group and saying, I don't think people in wheelchairs are hot is ableist. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Look, people have a preference on what they like and what they don't like. Yeah, someone who goes kayaking, someone who likes pizza, usually preferably someone who doesn't like pineapple on their pizza or oatmeal in their cookies, right? Look, people have preferences, okay? Some people are attracted to people of the opposite sex. Naturally, that's who they're more attracted to. People of the same sex. It's not because someone's marginalized. Because you're marginalized, you don't get special privileges. I don't have to like you or have to be attracted to you because you're marginalized. That's that inclusion that we were talking about, right? If it happens naturally, that's fine. And look, don't get me wrong. I got no problem with a big girl, okay? I like them thick sometimes, okay? But there's more to it than just that. But that is how you marginalize yourself, by putting yourself in that box. Fat people, black people. You're going to compare that to being black? You're going to compare that to being in a wheelchair? Look, whether marginalized or not, even those groups aren't similar. Okay? You can't say, oh, well, I'm fat. That's just like hating on me because I'm black. No, it's not. No, it's not. Look, I'm a big dude. Okay? I'm a big dude. Okay? Not every woman is attracted to a big guy. Now, I got fortunate. I got very lucky. A smoking hot wife. Don't know how I pulled that off. Okay? She likes me for me. I'm cool with that. All right? But she's skinny. And I've had them skinny. I've had them thick. I've had them all kinds. Okay? All shapes, sizes, and colors. But it wasn't because they had to meet this certain quota of appearances and whatnot. It was a multitude of things. And that is where I think certain people, where you call them marginalized, whatever, certain groups of people struggle, is they think that one thing that marginalizes them or whatever is what identifies who they are entirely. Now I'll go back to the trans people. Again, got no problem with them. But if that's who defines who you are, you've got a lot of soul digging to do. Okay? Like I said, hang out with gay dudes, lesbians, whatever, all the time. I don't think of them that way. I don't address them that way. I don't, change how I do things for them. I treat them like a normal human being. That's all they expect me to do to them. Treat them like I would treat anybody else. And I do. Okay? Nothing special. I make jokes and pick at them just like they do for me. Okay? That's part of being included. That's part of being part of the joke. Being included, that's a big thing. Right? I don't have to validate them. They don't expect me to validate it. Validate them, whatever. They're happy with who they are. Okay? They know who they are. I treat them with respect. Sometimes I start a sentence and I don't know where it's going. But look, they're attracted to who they're attracted to. I'm attracted to who I'm attracted to. And it's more than just size. It's more than just color. There's a lot that goes into it that makes us who we are. And I wish more people would see that, especially the people that are blowing up Twitter and reaching out to these Hollywood producers telling them what they need to include. Because again, your character is more than that one little thing that you're trying to define yourself by. Okay? Look, we already know this. And again, you're going to hear my bias in this because I am biased. Okay? And I don't even know where I fall on the spectrum of left, right, center, whatever entirely. But look, the Democratic Party is a party of not taking responsibility. And I don't mean every single person that identifies as a Democrat. Okay? But here's some things. A lot of them feel like they shouldn't have to work. And this is me talking about not just, voters, but mostly the administration, what they're trying to push out there, right? Oh, don't have to work. Food should be free. Medication should be free. They should be paid to stay at home. Okay? Loans should be forgiven. It's not your fault your degree was worthless. It's not your fault you kept changing majors. It's not your fault you dropped out of, after 7 years of not finishing and you still had all that loan. Now, look, I hear the arguments. Well, I get interest charges of so-and-so every month and it's hard to catch up, if not impossible. I get it. And I've had loans like that, but we still have to pay them off. If you took out the loan, you owe the money and pay it off. I know it's difficult, but again, builds character. They believe money grows on trees, that we can just print more money and that solves the issues. And it doesn't. Okay. If they print more money, they think it won't impact the economy, right? It'll get us out of debt faster. It'll completely cover the latest spending bills. How many spending bills are they pushing? They're saying, hey, it won't cost the American people anything in taxes. Nothing's going to change. And this is our spending. That's not true. The United States government doesn't create anything. Okay. They just export, they import, and they tax us, right? We are the source of income. We are the product. They don't have money. Every time they print another dollar, it devalues every single dollar in circulation. $100 today was worth significantly more in the 40s, 50s, 60s, or what have you than it is now. $100 today is worth more than $100 5 years from now, because it's going to take that or even less to basically make it worth $10. The buying power, the spending power is not the same. And it's because of inflation. It's because they keep printing money. Okay? That's got to get under control. And I'm a huge, huge Rand Paul fan. And I totally believe in auditing the Fed, see what's going on, and get it under control. Boo-doop. All right. Let's see. As long as there are millionaires and billionaires, they will always be evil. You should hate them for being successful. They'll be taxed more to cover all those other expenses. Okay. Let me drop a little knowledge on that. All right. So if that's the aim, right, of the Democrats to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go after the millionaires and billionaires, right? We're penalizing success. I mean, they already pay a ton. You just saw not too long ago, Elon Musk and Elizabeth Warren get into a spat. Elizabeth Warren doesn't know what she's talking about. Okay. Not the first time anybody could say that about her either. But she said Elon wouldn't pay any taxes. He paid more taxes for last year. He'll pay more taxes for last year than anyone has ever paid. It's a matter of fact. But she doesn't understand that. Okay. I don't know, because she's getting her news from certain sources that echo the same exact thing. So again, variety. All right. Not only does it penalize success, there's still not enough. If we go after the millionaires and billionaires and we tax them, there's still not enough to cover all the expenses that continue to get rolled out. Okay. And it de-incentivizes a drive for success. So what drives you to succeed? Is it recognition? Is it the ability to work more hours? No, it's usually financially driven, right? To be able to be more financially well off than you are now. That's why we do what we do. We're driven to be more successful because we want to make more money. We want to buy more things. We want to not struggle and live paycheck to paycheck. So the idea that, hey, if you go out and create a business, grow it to something the size of like Amazon or Walmart or Microsoft, we're going to take most of your money away because you were too successful. You made too much money. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Okay. This is where I lean over to the left some too, because yes, those CEOs make a killing and they deserve to make a killing. But if they're paying a minimum wage to their people, that's just ridiculous. Now, Amazon, I give them props because I know those guys are what, $15 an hour or more. So that's great. And more companies should do that if they can afford to do that. I do believe that the minimum wage should be raised. Now, I'm not saying to $15 an hour. Okay, because a lot of the moms and pop stores and everything local that hopefully you're supporting can't make that huge jump for their employees, but a lot of the big businesses can. So I don't know how to work that out to where that changes, but I do believe something needs to change there, and I think a conversation needs to happen because I believe the people on the left want the minimum wage to go sky high right off the bat, and I think the people on the right are more open to it. Now, there's some that say no, minimum wage, minimum work. And don't get me wrong, I agree with that. But the amount attached to it shouldn't have been the same that it's been for the last decade or so. Okay? Because again, going back to what I said earlier, more money's been printed, our money's been devalued. So $7 and some change now is probably got the spending power or buying power of what, $3, $4, now compared to what it used to. So I do believe that is something that needs to be looked at. We need to, be open to look for change. Okay. All right. Hollywood. They won't own their mistakes. So a lot of Hollywood is Democrat, progressive, liberal. And I say that a lot of the outspoken Hollywood, there's a lot of Hollywood that doesn't speak up. A lot of celebrities, tons of celebrities that don't even have a Twitter. They don't go out there and post stuff all the time about what they believe politically. They go out, they promote their movies, they accept their awards, they go home, have a cold one. Okay, that's cool. But you've got those super progressives that are out there and have to have the inclusion. They have to have the diversity. They have to push their narratives. Okay, but they won't own their mistakes. The Star Wars trilogy, right? The sequel trilogy. In a word, it sucked. Okay, not just my opinion. It's widely accepted opinion that the sequel trilogy sucked. Okay. But it's not Kathleen Kennedy's fault. It's not due to them virtue signaling and pushing, characters without giving them stories, giving them abilities right off the bat, without giving them any kind of character. No, it's not their fault. It's the fans' fault. The MCU movies, and I stress that because it's clear that almost every single MCU show that's coming out or movie that's coming out is moving toward more female-driven, female-led, and that would be fine, again, if it progressed naturally that way. Having strong female characters is something that we've had for a long time, even though they'll claim that they had the first, strong female lead in a movie, which clearly they didn't, but they'll claim it because everything's a first now for some reason. First gay lead, first, female lead, first lead of color. It's not true. Okay. Not true at all. But they're going to say that because they need you to believe that. So you'll go to the box office and, spend your money. All right. But right now they are taking the guys out of the leads. They're even, whatever they're doing, they're changing genders. And that's the other thing, changing the genders. If you had the actual female leads to put out there and the characters that already exist, I think the fans would be more open to that versus changing the genders, changing the identities of these characters that have been around for decades in the comic books. But MCU movies, shows, comics are, starting to kind of get trash, right? It's not Kevin Feige's fault. It's not due to them virtue signaling. It's not because they're more focused on diversity and checking boxes than telling good stories. It's the fans' faults, right? Just ask who ruined Santa Inc. It's not Seth Rogen's fault. It's not Sarah Silverman's fault. It's not due to them virtue signaling. It's white people's faults. Okay. And judged by the Rotten Tomato score, let's take a look at that. Pretty depressing. So not even enough critic reviews to get a score. 4% audience review. 4%. But it's not because the movie sucked or show, whatever it is. It's a show. It's not because it sucked. It's because racist white people didn't watch it. If you look on Twitter, that's what it's going to say. Specifically coming from people like Seth Rogen and Sarah Silverman, who are behind the film. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay. And this one, they can blame the critics too, because not enough critics reviewed it to even give it a critic score. They didn't want their names attached to it. They knew it was garbage too. All right. But no one on the left seems to want to own their responsibility. I know that's a trigger word. Don't do it again. All right. But it's always somebody else's fault. Look, this is still America. You have the right to free speech. You have the right to be offensive. You have the right to question authority. You have the right to protest. You don't have the right to take away this right for others because you disagree with what they have to say. All right? You have the right to pursue happiness. Start a business. Invest in a hobby. Raise your children your way. Create memories. 2022 is just starting. All right? If you don't know what being an American is, find out. Read the Constitution. Read the Declaration of Independence. Research our founding fathers. If you're in another country, some of this may not apply. I get that. Make the best of your situation. Or there's plenty of room here. America has and will always be a melting pot. Despite what mainstream media news tells you, we welcome immigrants, not illegal immigrants. Don't let 2023 get here and you regret not doing that thing that's on your bucket list to do this year. This is your year. Just have to claim it.
Dr. Scholl makes foot products. And he's a doctor, so he went to school for a long time. But it doesn't take a lot to figure out that stepping on a cushion will be more comfortable. That guy wasted lots of time at school, because I'd have bought that shit from a Mr. Scholl. Maybe even a Senor Scholl.